going on, guys? Happy Wednesday. Than, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. Welcome to the Wednesday night random reef chat of the week. No real topic today. It's kind of just random Q&A. So if you guys got any burning questions, feel free to fire them our way. How's life in the greenhouse been going? In the not so greenhouse.
Yeah, it's getting less and less of a greenhouse all the time. So this particular summer has been crazy hot, like unseasonably hot. So there were like multiple consecutive like 90-degree days.
Toasty.
And usually like a couple of 90-degree days, it's not the end of the world because over the years we've gotten a lot better at controlling heat. So even if it's like 93 outside, for example,
Mm-hmm.
we can get our tanks to be about like 79, 80. But if it's multiple days of it, you get more tank water days like over 80 degrees, like 81, 82, 83.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you run into like some other issues entirely. Like there might be, oh, well, obviously stress, right? The stress on the corals.
Yep.
But the bigger issue is there might have been some pest issue or some critter that you thought that you beat 3 years ago. Hadn't seen one in 3 years. Haven't really introduced any of that type of coral that would normally come in on because you've been so fastidious about beating that particular pest. And some ancient egg is just going to hatch because it's like 84 degrees in your water now.
Yep.
And so over the years, like I joke that it's a greenhouse because it's like less and less and less and less and less of greenhouse. Like we at one point we meaning like as if anybody else did it, I painted the entire thing white and that
Mm-hmm.
dropped out all kinds of light that's getting in. So that helped out tremendously. That probably dropped everything by like 20 degrees.
Oh
It was like
wow.
the most impactful thing I've ever done. And I'm like, had I known it was going to be so effective, I would have done it way sooner. Um, we've been beefing up all kinds of stuff. We put over like a giant, like floating canopies over
Yep.
all the systems. So even when there is like light penetration into the greenhouse, a lot of that light isn't directly hitting the tanks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like that aspect of it. But today I actually had a roofer come out and see what it might cost for me to put a metal roof over top of this greenhouse
Yep.
to further block everything out. And then come next year, I might even go as far as air conditioning the building.
Hmm. Nice.
So definitely not a greenhouse at that point if all this stuff happens.
Nope, you're losing the green aspect. It'll just be another extension of the building. How was it crazy to add a roof or not too bad?
I don't have the numbers yet, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a weird install because I'm guessing that I might be the only person to ever ask a roofing company to install a metal roof over a greenhouse.
That's fair.
And so the guy was just kind of like looking over just structurally how he would even go about installing the roof
Mm-hmm.
because like he's going to have to put up support structures and then drill the metal into that. So it's going to be a goofy install. Luckily, it's not a gigantic building. It's about, I'd say, 1,500 square feet
Mm-hmm.
for the actual roof surface.
Not too bad.
So not too bad. Basically, it's the size of my studio
I
in the
mean, you
new
can
build.
just move tanks into your studio and then,
Yeah,
cheaper than the roof.
that gives you an idea of just how big my studio
Yeah,
is in the new building that Becca has by herself these days.
that's awesome. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. Shelly, thanks for the super chat. Don't forget to hit that like button. Always appreciated. Okay,
I don't have chat open, so if anybody's saying anything bad about me,
I'll let
I'm
you
going to
know.
be woefully ignorant.
I'll let you know. So Michael is asking, does Than find it hard to keep long tentacle Goniopora rather than short tentacle Goniopora? I can't keep short tentacles alive. No, I can keep short alive, but can't keep long. Have you found any big difference in long versus short for care or?
So I think that the short tentacle ones, I think they get called Bernardopora sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they're all like actually Ghanies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, those tend to be easier for us, but I wouldn't say that the long tentacled ones are necessarily that much more difficult.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I don't know
found
if I don't yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know if Bernardoporia is. I don't know if it's technically the same as a short coney, but that one, at least for me, has been super duper easy. Like I threw that in this brand new tank beside me day one, and it didn't miss a beat. So that one's, in my experience, is super hardy.
Yeah, they tend to they tend to grow faster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've been able to propagate them without, too much worry, whereas, like, some of the more desirable, long tentacled Ghanies are a little bit more delicate for that.
Mm-hmm.
So every single time we cut, like, an amazeballs, it's like, we're a little worried because
Yeah,
it doesn't always go well, sort of thing.
that's fair. 50-50. Uh,
Kind of, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's just like wild versus tank hardened, but yeah, there's certain ones where I find you can cut them, frag them, happy as could be, and there's other ones that are just super flaky, like you're saying.
Yeah, and certain ones, I guess there's certain short tentacle ones that always gave us trouble.
Yeah.
Like, the ones that are mostly yellow, for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, those have, like, never done great for us. They hang around for, like, a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
But, we have, like, this one that's kind of like a red variety, and in a couple of our tanks, you would never know that it's a short tentacled Gani. I mean, it sends out, um, like, these, like, the tentacle extensions,
Yeah.
um, every bit of, like, 5 inches, and it's not just, like, one, it's, like, the
Yeah.
entire thing. So it looks like a regular long tentacled Gani, but it's not.
Is that
It's
the red with the yellow mouse? That one or a different one?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one has super long in mine too.
Yeah. But one of them, it's like every single tentacle was like that. Occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
they just send out the one straggler that's
Yeah.
long, but no, like, we've got a couple that every single thing is, like, bushy on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right. Acro Killer, Than, the suit at Reefstock was.
Thanks.
You're always on point there.
Yeah, that was a commitment because it was 90 degrees in Reefstock.
That is a commitment. Were you
Gotta commit
dying
to it.
inside, or was it just dedication to the
Oh,
cause?
I hung out inside, like, so much in the air conditioning
Yeah.
because, like, so this is this one thing I've learned about, like, just travel and
Mm-hmm.
venues, okay? So first off, the plane ride is gonna be absolutely frigid. So I'm always good to wear, like, three-piece suit on a plane, right?
Yeah.
It's always gonna be, like, freezing cold. Once you get to the venue, there's a good chance it's gonna be polar cold also, and it was. So I was absolutely in my element while everybody else was shivering, and I tried to limit as much of the outdoor stuff as possible because, like,
Yeah.
people wanted to do outdoorsy things in, Chattanooga because it is a very outdoorsy town, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Miss me with all that. Oh, you wanna walk to the restaurant? Yeah, I don't think so. We need to pick a different restaurant." Stuff like that.
Where's my air conditioning ride? I gotta look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of, how was Reefstock since you're just there?
I liked it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, like, my criteria for a good show is, like, very different from literally everybody else. So what makes a good show for me might, like, not work out so well for others.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, just like every show that I've seen this year, the attendance is low.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a million different reasons for it. It's like the first show in a new location. It's the summer of death, and the entire industry is slow, that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I get it. And it's also you're scheduling a show in the middle of summer. Like,
Yeah.
those generally don't do great. But the stuff that I like about, a slower show, which works out super well for me, is that I'm actually able to talk to vendors and companies at their booth during the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually during the show, when it is busier, I I try very hard to not talk to them at the booth because they need to be talking to other people entirely, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kinda have to schedule around that. Maybe we'll go to lunch, maybe we'll do dinner, maybe we'll talk at the bar afterwards, but it'll always be something separate. I never get the chance to have, like, a lot of, like, deeper substantive conversations with the industry side. Um, So in that sense, it's great for me, but at the same time, it's like if you're talking to me at a show and you're a vendor, then that means it's pretty darn slow, and you
Hmm.
might be like struggling to like make up your money back, I guess.
Yeah, fair. All right, I see your logic. I don't know. For me, half the reason the show is the social aspect, so I can appreciate that.
And if it is the social aspect, especially with like the business side of things,
Hmm.
there's going to be a lot of time for that.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful because like it's funny because like Raj, for example, who owns Reef Builders, owns MRC.
Hmm.
He took us out to dinner both nights, like a large group. It was like 15 plus, and he picked up the bill both nights. And it's like that's very generous, right? Literally like 2 days after the show, I'm asking him for a quote on stuff, and I'm guessing I'm buying both of those dinners right back. So it's like, business to business is a funny, funny, squirrely world.
Yep, that's fair. Well, hopefully you enjoyed your dinner that you got with your new skimmer.
Hmm. That was great.
Yeah, excellent. Uh, yep. Okay, in the chat, uh, yeah, a couple people are saying they've had some Gonnies that didn't play nice to each other. I have had that. Majority of the Gonnies I've had have been fine touching, but have had one or two where they've actually taken out the one beside it. So they don't all play nice, but in general, I find they do.
We keep all of ours together. And obviously, we try to give everything a little bit of space.
Hmm.
Now, I heard totally anecdotally that some people think that there might be some chemical warfare or disease warfare going on between different varieties. And so they're starting to separate them out entirely from one another. So, like, you're having trouble with amazeballs, give it its own system entirely. Like, don't let it mix with others. So that was just something that I had heard in the wind, but I don't have that experience personally because we keep it with everything.
Yeah. I have this not as bright dark green one and little bits of purple in it in my little nano, and I can see it's killed half of this greeny yellow one that the tentacles are touching. But that's the only one that I've actually seen be impacted from another Gonny rubbing up against it.
That's
Yep.
interesting.
All right. Boost my volume a bit. Hopefully that's better. Um, Apparently I'm a smidge quiet. Let me turn it up a bit more.
Am I a smidge quiet?
No, it's me.
Mm.
Of course, right before my stream, my child was in here poking like every button on my mixer, so that didn't help the cause.
Mm.
There we go. Hopefully that boosts a little bit better. Um,
Yeah, you're way louder. You're way louder now.
okay, hopefully that's good. Am I too loud? Am I okay?
You sound good to me.
Okay. Is there any on your side of things? Is there any like hot corals this year? Like, is there anything that sells a lot more than other stuff, or is it just kind of status quo
Um,
for now?
maybe it's a this year thing, but I think that the different types of like colorful plates
Hmm.
are in high demand. I would say the quote unquote Diaceras plates, which I'm not even sure that they are Diaceras. They might be Cycloceras. I'm not really sure, but there's several varieties of that do really well for us, that propagate well, and they tend to sell really well. Um, in that same vein, there's like a couple of like really, really expensive ones. And we
Hmm.
finally got a hold of like a small, tiny little quarter-sized piece for like $1,000.
Ouch.
Yeah, full retail. Probably a
Yeah.
little bit extra than retail, but I just wanted it in the collection, and we'll grow it out slowly because it's obviously a very slow growing thing.
Did they buy you dinner first?
Nope,
Ah,
not these
curses.
guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. What's okay? What's the most expensive you've ever spent on a coral? Like, what's the
That might
highest
be it.
priced single? Yeah, that's up
There's
there.
Yeah, there's been a couple of 800s, and I think this is the first 1,000. Well, okay, I should say of frags, because I
Hmm.
think that we've paid more than that for like a really, really great acanthophilia, like once. I think the most I've ever spent was like 1750 for a coral. It died.
Ah,
So
that sucks.
yeah, we've got video of it, so at least there's that. But no, it didn't make it. Um,
Memories of the coral.
Yeah. So that's the nice thing about having like a YouTube channel and having like nice cameras and stuff like that is like you can
Mhm.
collect some really, really, really great footage of stuff. And so it always has that baseline tiny bit of value.
Mhm. Do you have, just for my own curiosity, like this, or I envision you probably do, like have some organized archive of like clips of different corals and stuff you can just pull from?
Oh gosh, yes.
I figured so.
It is extensive.
I'm
Like
jealous. That sounds nice.
it goes back like years and years.
Hmm.
Years and years and years.
Yep.
So that's actually one of the things that I kind of pride myself with, and especially this was so Becca's been here about like 4 or 5 years. Before, when it was just me, you could kind of get away with having like sloppy data management. But
Mm.
when you start to have like more people looking at it, and they need to be able to find stuff too, y- over time, like that whole system has to get polished up. And
Hmm.
like over the last 5 years, it's been getting really polished. So um, if we did bring on like another media person, like an
Hmm.
editor, I think that the onboarding process would be a lot smoother just because of how well organized that stuff is.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's good. I've thrived for that idea for a long time, but have not taken the time to do it. I have a NAS that has, majority of all the video raw footage, and I have all my rendered videos, at least the majority of it. But
Hmm.
one day going through it, cutting all these clips of, key things and like having that little archive to pull from without being like, what video is that in? Let me go find a clip of that. Like, it would be
It's
nice.
super helpful. And
Hmm.
one little trick that um, I started to do was if basically don't try to save disk space. So
Buy more hard drives.
wherever, what?
Just buy more hard drives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So wherever anybody thinks a file should be, that's where it should also be. So if for example you have an Acropora, it should be in the Acropora folder in
Hmm.
that particular type of Acropora, right? So let's just say it's a Walt Disney, it'll go in the Walt Disney folder.
Yeah.
But if you found a weird pest on an Acropora that also happens to be a Walt Disney, it goes in the pest folder too,
Hmm.
or a disease folder,
Makes sense.
or if there's like a specific SPS Aquascape thing, it goes in the Aquascape folder. So
Yeah.
you're duplicating 3 files, but wherever somebody is looking for those files, they will
Hmm.
find it where they think it should be. And that's
Yep.
been like a huge godsend because
That
like
makes
sometimes,
sense.
yeah, sometimes like footage just gets lost because of organization's sake.
Hmm. Nope, that's solid. Solid tips. One day when I have free time, I'll go through and start making that. It'll be a
I
while.
think we have 60 terabytes of footage.
Solid.
Yeah, so
I'm curious.
it's a bit.
It's up there. And yours is super high res in quality too. So, okay.
Most of it.
Question from the chat. Reefy2. Has Than ever seen any weird metals show up in the tank from epoxy putty used to mount frags?
We wouldn't be able to identify it from epoxy putty specifically because we probably use less than most hobbyists. I think we
Mm.
use at most like 5 tubes a year
Mm.
over the course of like
Not much.
17,000 gallons.
Yep.
So it's not something that we would really notice coming from that specifically.
That's fair. Have you lost any chunks of metal in the tank? Did it have any effect on your tanks, good or bad?
Yeah, so we've gone through a couple bouts of heavy metal poisoning. Now, I attributed it to not so much like random things falling into the tanks. That might have been like an old school greenhouse problem.
Mm.
Less so having that stuff happen these days, but only because we have like less construction going on. In the new tanks, we have had heavy metal stuff, and I think it's mainly from pumps that have broken down, like a
Mm.
swollen magnet type stuff, and then you get the
Yeah.
rust stuff exposure. We have rust exposure from algae scraping magnets, things of that
Mm.
sort. So we try to be better about removing those magnets whenever we're done using them.
Mm. That's a good place to be. I about a
Eating magnets we're bad about.
yeah, a month or two ago, I had a pair of bone cutters, black ones,
Hmm.
and one of the little springy parses broke off and disappeared into my tank, and I have no idea where it went. So
Yeah, that's bad. That could be
yeah,
bad.
I can't find it. So I'm like, is this going to be some bonus trace element dosing? Is it going to bugger me eventually? I don't know. Time will tell. But
It's not magnetic, is it?
I don't know.
Because
I guess
it's
I could
like
test it on the one prong that's still on there. I'll check it later and find out.
because if it's magnetic, you could probably just grab like a Tunzi, like those. So I don't know if they still have these things, but they're like downright dangerous magnets. They're like H shaped, like a big H, about like this big.
Off, yeah,
And if you get your fingers stuck in them, you can't have your fingers back. That sort of thing.
yeah,
You could just grab one of those, one half of that, and just like run it through your sand and run it to see what
yeah.
it would grab.
The problem is just I think it's probably in the middle of like a coral somewhere or something, and then it's like this bird, not a bird's nest, but like red dragon or like one of those. It's just like they're just so big. Is my theory is it's probably in the middle of one of those somewhere, but I can't find it for the
Mm.
life of me. But I don't know.
That stuff freaks me out. Just like the random metal object like that.
Yeah, motivation to do a periodic large water change for good measure. Guess I'll do an ICP test and see if I have any heavy metals in there.
So once we fixed our heavy metal issue,
Mm-hmm.
eh, that was like a big deal. So like the first thing is make sure nothing is eating the coral.
Yeah.
Next thing is make sure that there's nothing poisoning the coral. And right there, if you can do those two things, most coral will grow really fast.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to feed them or anything. You don't have to worry about any other parameters. If you just make sure that those two things aren't happening, you're probably going to have a lot of success. But the third big thing that we started to do that made like an immediate impact was trace elements. And I've said this before on my channel, but I was really hoping that would not be the case because like I wish it was just snake oil and
Yep.
expensive water, but we noticed a big difference once we started using it.
Mm-hmm. I think. Well, before you started doing it, did you ever ICP test your tanks, and were you deficient in anything prior to doing it?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we were okay. So there's only so much weight that I put into ICP, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
like so many problems that could happen to give you like messed up results.
Yep.
But I kind of trust that zero means zero.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's like a safe assumption, but it's definitely a bad reading considering how sensitive those things are when zero comes up.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of zeros on stuff that was just like, okay, well, let's just get off of zero. That was like my big goal because I'm not really trying to hit like very specific numbers. I just want to get into the range and preferably not zero.
Enough to be available.
Yeah. And there were corals that had like not grown a millimeter in years.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they all took off.
Yeah.
Like it was like the most noticeable like launch of growth.
Nice.
So it's like, yeah, and the big difference was like, oh, okay, it's because you
Yeah.
started to do trace elements and get stuff off of zero.
Did you target specific ones, or did you broad spectrum trace?
So we broad spectrum first,
Hmm.
and then we kind of paid more attention to the stuff that's chronically low and
Yep.
chronically bottomed out, and then we started to dose that independently of like the general dosing.
Okay, that makes sense. And
But we
then,
also didn't want to overdo it because some of that stuff like sounded like heavy metals, like cobalt and stuff. And I'm
yep.
like, well, the ideal range is such and such. I don't care. I'm not going to accidentally poison my tank with like heavy metals just because a test said so. So like barely off of zero means it's bioavailable enough for me.
Yeah, I know I would agree. The biggest things is if something is deficient and it doesn't have that at all, I think that's where you see the biggest bang for your buck with trace elements.
Yeah. If I was a hobbyist that had only one aquarium, like I think that it's much easier to swallow the cost of ICP. My issue is whenever we run ICP, let's say we do it monthly, we might have to send out a dozen tests monthly. That gets a little pricey.
That's up there.
So, yeah. So at some point, it's like, well, do we really need to be testing this stringently? But I think it does kind of help. Um,
Yeah, I'm far overdue for mine. I might do it just to see. I'm curious about my metal trace element dosing in the tank, just to see.
I think
Um,
I'm gonna start selling them, selling those kits.
Probably.
Just
And
because
you'll
like
get then
people
you'll get them
people are
cheaper.
curious. Yeah, well, right. People are curious, and it's not like a product that goes bad. You send them a vial.
It's true. It's not going to go bad on the shelf, and if
Yeah,
not, you can use them up yourself over time.
right, right. That's yeah. I'll definitely use them up.
Yep. You do promotions, spend, so much, get a free ICP test.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also something you can just like throw into the overnight box, and it's not going to be like a huge thing.
Yeah,
Sounds
exactly.
like a pump.
It would be good. What's Kate? Question in the chat. What's your thoughts on the Tropic Marin glass bobber hydrometer? Um, I broke mine sadly, but I think they're good to have because they're always essentially calibrated. So it's kind of good to just double check stuff periodically if you don't trust something.
We forgot that they existed. We have them. We have like a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were at one time worried about our refractometers being like out of spec. So yeah, actually, I should put that on the task list to do that again.
Yeah,
Literally forgot that that stuff existed.
yeah. It's a good spot check.
Yeah.
Um, but at 77 degrees, who stays at 77 degrees? Yeah, so I mean, it is with a certain temperature. It'll be a little bit off if it's a lot warmer, but I don't think it's drastically off.
But your refractometer also needs a temperature range,
Yeah.
like
Do
everything does.
do you use digital ones or do you use refractometers?
I use the glass refractometer,
Yeah.
not digital. So digital, are you talking about like the probe?
Or
Salinity probe?
I mean, the Salinity probe. There's the Milwaukee one. There's the Hana ones. There's a bunch of different digital ones.
Okay.
I
I kind of don't trust the electric ones
That's
as
fair.
much for some reason.
I
Like anything
splurt.
with thing, I'm not into.
Well, here's the trade-off with the hydrometer, or not the hydrometer, the refractometer. If you smack it, I mean, you could be out of calibration, right? So you gotta check it once in a while. Hello, kitty. So I recently splurged on the bigger Milwaukee one when it was on sale just for fun, and then
Oh, we
so
have
far,
one of those too.
yeah, so far
Yeah,
it's been accurate.
you put the little dropper thing in.
Yeah, and that little like silver
Yeah,
ish.
yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot that thing existed too.
Yeah, it was an impulse buy when it was on sale. I was like, yeah, let's try this. I've never tried this one. Um,
The best is probably the glass one, right? The the
you never
floating
have to
hydrometer.
calibrate it, so that's the big one, right?
Yeah.
Where a refractometer you got to calibrate, digital ones you got to calibrate. So that's like the tried and true, like put it in a big cylinder and
And I
zero it.
would trust it because like what are you calibrating against? Because we know that the calibration solutions are all bad.
That's why I think the Tropic Mirrored one's just like good if you don't trust something, or if you have a digital and refractory and they're both reading differently, you're like, okay, here's the tiebreaker. Who's more accurate?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Good. And I forget how much it costs, but it's not so
it's
much
like
that it's
40
like,
bucks. It's
yeah,
not much.
you should buy those. You should buy those. Everybody, come on now.
Yeah, exactly. I've been trying. They've been out of stock for a while. I broke
Oh,
mine a while ago, so I was like, ah. Can you run a successful reef tank with no refugium? Yes, you sure can.
yeah. In fact, like most like serious business aquariums don't run refugiums.
Yeah,
Like
they can be a pain.
so every especially this is true for like the public aquarium and gigantic home aquarium circuit.
Mm,
Those people, if the homeowner or whoever is the client requests a refugium, they try their darndest to talk them out of it. Like they like we would we would love to have this conversation to bill you more for something. Please don't do this. Like fundamentally, this is a horrifically bad idea. Like they absolutely hate refugiums. So I can tell you why I don't like refugiums for a coral farm
mm,
is and this is especially true if you're bringing in corals from the wild.
mm.
Like so just so you know, the it is nearly impossible to find a place where like a big coral farm where they can bio isolate entirely from that activity.
Yeah.
Like my wholesaler that I go to the most has a separate building where they do it, and it's still a challenge. I technically have a separate building, and it's a challenge. Okay.
Mm,
Goofy stuff happens, people don't wash their hands, whatever, right?
yeah.
All of those mistakes will survive in your refugium forever. And whatever benefit that that refugium was providing could have been done differently
Mm,
with a bigger protein skimmer, that sort of thing, with
yeah.
ozone, with any number of filter roller or filter socks. all of that stuff could have been done, and you don't run the risk of perpetual pest issues.
That's fair.
So like, yeah, so it's never recommended at scale.
Yeah, well, that's fair. A Refugium's a tool primarily for nutrient export. The funny thing is, I didn't run one for ages, and after I got the Trident NP, it made me run one again just because I was like, "Oh crap, my nutrients are way higher than they should be," because it's something I slack at testing.
They'll work for that, but is that different than just growing algae and harvesting?
Well, that's what a Refugium does. No,
Well, it does a
but
little bit more than that.
I guess. But well, here's okay. There's a comment in the chat that was interesting. My corals look better since I got rid of the Refugium. So here's a consideration: that algae is also going to suck up trace elements, and
Absolutely.
it's quite possible it might be taking away trace elements from your corals if you're not, overdosing them to
Yeah.
compensate for the Refugium. So you could be causing that deficiency from the algae sucking it up. So that's another consideration of why your corals could look better afterwards.
This is also possibly in the weeds, but there could also be some chemical warfare going on as well with algae and corals, where they could be inhibiting growth
Hmm.
in an attempt to grow better themselves. Uh, I don't have a lot of great data on that. I didn't look it up,
It sounds
but
plausible. I believe
yeah,
it.
it's possible.
Um,
I'm more worried about critters
yeah,
being permanent
that's fair.
fixtures.
No, and they definitely can survive in their Refugium, aka Cheeto.
Yeah.
When I got mine, I dipped in RODI for a while just
Hmm.
to hopefully kill off any saltwater stuff. I mean, some stuff could have very well survived, but I did that, and the Cheeto was tough, survived it, didn't seem to miss a beat, then cleaned it up a bit, anyways.
As far as its effectiveness as nutrient removal, I think it absolutely does the job, though. In
And
fairness,
the better the light, the better the nutrient removal, I find too, right? The more power you're pumping in, the more growth to an extent.
maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Like if you have, a higher intensity light, you're going to get more growth. It's going to suck up more nutrients. I found that because, like,
do you
if it,
use like the red light or do you use white?
both.
Okay.
Fish Ventura, thanks for the super chat. Says, I love slash hate my refugium. Yeah, it's a trade off. The thing that I find a pain, only like the lazy reefer sides, I have a sponge after my refugium before the return pump chamber just to catch any little bits, but then I got to clean it and it gets mucked up after a while from all the little strands of loose chaeto. That's kind of why last time I didn't use refugium for ages and ages and ages. But
So this is just like a little random conceptual idea. But you know how there's people that have like decorative macroalgae aquariums?
yeah.
So I guess one of like the major keys to having a nice looking decorative macroalgae aquarium is you have to prune it more aggressively than you would have to prune even a freshwater planted tank.
Yeah.
Because as soon as like whatever the kind of like red like turf stringy algae starts to grow in your
Mm-hmm.
nice macroalgae, you can't really, deal with that with herbivores or anything, so you have to
Yeah.
prune it, right?
Yeah.
So one person I talked to said that they were pruning up to like 80% of their stuff, all the
Hmm.
way down to like the tiniest little bits and then regrowing it. And
Really?
when that gets clustered with other undesirable looking gross algae, they have to prune it all the way back. That sounds like a pretty good filter now. So if
It
you
does.
wanted to be insane about like your refugium, I can imagine an implementation like that, but you're making a very, very, very time intensive job for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You should have just got a bigger skimmer. Like
That's
if,
fair.
if nutrient removal was the thing, but if you wanted to do like the show algae aquarium, that could be like a pretty cool, very effective filter, especially if you're harvesting that aggressively.
Yep. If I was to do it, I would do all the weird algae, like not the normal ones. Like there's like dragon's breath and cool ones, and like the
Mhm.
shaving bushes and all the weird ones. I'd fill it full like pipefish or some cool little creatures. Just have like a second little display.
So you're saying that the red stuff, like the dragon's breath, isn't the cool stuff?
No, that it is, but like
That is
that's some
cool
of the
stuff.
cooler ones. Like you can get some like
Yeah.
that flame tip looking ones. Like I wouldn't use Chaetel or Calurpa, like any of the overly
Okay.
invasive ones. I would stick. It wouldn't be as good for nutrient export, but it'd be kind of a cool.
I think dragon's breath is like the kind of like the aesthetic go-to. It grows fast
Yeah.
enough and looks pretty enough. And I've
Yep.
even seen some that are like sparkly.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. It's like a
Yep.
glitter bomb algae.
It's kind of fun. Gonna go
Yeah.
big. Go big with your display refugium.
It sounds like a
Acid
lot of work.
rain. Yeah, it does. Sandy cheeks. Do coral farmers use pods in their system?
No.
I'm sure there's pods in it, but I don't think you add them.
Well, we run Interceptor regularly.
So there's no pods.
So, but they come back, which
Yeah.
also begs the question, like, how are you back again?
Yeah.
But no, we blast our tanks because
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of have like a love-hate relationship with a lot of amphipods and things like that because I think that they do a good job at certain things like detritus control and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they also do stuff like they eat Bergian nudibranchs.
Yeah.
So like people are always like, oh, my RAS is eatable. Chances are that your RAS has never got to them. Like amphipods are really good at eating nudibranchs. And
Good to know.
in just about everybody else's tank is like teeming with copepods because they don't blast it every now and again with Interceptor.
Yeah.
So yeah, so sometimes people are like, oh yeah, my Aptasia wasn't like they didn't make a dent in my Aptasia. It's probably because you have these other things going on.
Yeah, that would make sense. Now, you when doing Interceptor, do you take it out and like dip a rack at a time in like a bath, or do you actually put into the whole display
Whole
tank?
tank. You put in
Really
your whole. Yep.
crazy.
No, that's just how it's done.
That's fair enough. I'm just curious. I've
Yeah.
never.
It's like it's kind of like a 24-hour thing.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to be like doing a 24-hour dip on corals like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, I mean, you could, right? You could set up like a Rubbermaid or something like that. Dose Interceptor, just run one pump overnight. You could do that,
Yeah.
but it's very gentle on everything that's not a crustacean.
Fair.
You just like run it for like a few days.
So fish and stuff, that's fine.
Fine for fish. It'll kill the hell out of your crabs. It'll kill the hell out of your
Shrimp.
shrimp. Yeah, like
What about
really
snails?
badly. Snails are fine.
Huh, interesting. Good to know.
Yeah, it's specifically crustaceans.
Yep.
And if you did, so what's kind of cool about it though is you were let's say that you're trying to target like red bugs. It's like, oh no, I found some bugs on my acros, right? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why everybody runs out and gets Interceptor. Um, you dose the Interceptor, and there's these other coral that you had no idea that it had any issue, but
Yep.
they're all like triple the size.
Mm-hmm.
Like bubble tip anemones, for example, was
Yeah.
one thing that we noticed right away. We
Huh.
dosed Interceptor, bubble tip anemones were like double the size, double, triple the
Really?
size
So what was
overnight.
bugging the nem?
No idea.
It's gone,
But
whatever it
it's dead
was.
now.
The sledgehammer approach. It's gone.
Yeah.
Interesting. I never would have thought about that for like anything but an acro.
Now, somebody did tell me though that it might not be a pest thing that was bothering the thing, but it might have been a food thing,
Mm-hmm.
because they said that Interceptor is actually like beef flavored because it's for dogs.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I haven't like taken it myself to like
Yeah.
double check, but it might be a flavor thing
Mm-hmm.
that they're reacting to and just getting swollen up.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anecdote, guys. It's
That's
just an
fair.
anecdote that I heard.
Okay. This is one from a while ago. Forget about it. I know Than loves Astrina, so I don't take my note. But I also have tiny limpets. Are they okay to have in a reef tank? Any thoughts on tiny little limpets, snails?
I think they're fine.
Yeah.
They don't really reproduce that quickly or anything to be plague proportions. I think the only issue with limpets is that they're really, really, really their herbivore activity is very aggressive. So if you have like an acrylic tank, I think it could do like permanent damage
Mm-hmm.
to the acrylic.
Yeah. Do you have any acrylic tanks?
A few, but not very many, like quarantines and stuff like that. And our sumps are acrylic.
Does
Um,
it? I've always been like afraid because I'm like fear of scratches. Is it
you'll
that
scratch
bad?
them instantly. Yeah, like
Okay. You
instantly.
just look at it and scratches.
So yeah, but but what I've noticed about acrylic is that let's say you scratch the heck out of it, right? There's like millions of little micro scratches.
Mm-hmm.
if you go back through and just like get the algae off of the acrylic, you would never know that there's scratches. Like it
Mm,
cleans up better than glass,
yeah.
but it scratches instantly. And if you have urchins, they're going to leave like permanent damage. If you have coralline algae, it's going to leave permanent damage. Well, I mean, like permanent,
Yeah.
as in like you couldn't just buff it out. But okay, by the way, I'm restoring two acrylic tanks that have been like left in a garage for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like my friend gave me these tanks, right? And they're
Mm,
jacked up. This is my first time actually doing like the sandpaper and like the progressively higher grit.
yeah.
Then the amount of effort that requires is so much that I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like I don't care if my acrylic tank is scratched. Like this is
It's not worth it.
it's like 30 hours or something. It's like it's an insane amount of work. It's
I, ha-
so much.
I have to ask, were you wearing a suit while buffing?
Um, I was wearing definitely like a mask over my face.
I've never seen you not dressed up, so I just was
It
curious.
happens occasionally.
All right.
It happens occasionally.
Always make me feel underdressed. Uh, that's awesome. In the chat, reef theory. I love the anecdotes. Gotta coin that term. That's great. You do have great anecdotes.
It's like, yeah, it's like it's probably not true, but it's a anecdote.
Yeah, I love it. So, if someone gave you like a really big, nice acrylic tank again that has scratches, would you do it? It's not worth the effort, or would you?
Nah, I'm good.
No.
I mean, well, maybe I could use a giant tank, like a giant acrylic tank as a sump or something.
Mm,
But oh my gosh, like to actually restore an acrylic tank, like a big one, sounds awful to me. Like it's almost like it's not worth being free. It's so much work. I should just bought a better glass tank.
that's fair. That's fair. All right, I'll stick to glass. I should not go down the acrylic rabbit hole.
Unless you're like an earthquake zone or something like that, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair logic.
Like that's
Rookie reefer. You're doing it wrong, Than. What's the secret, Rookie? I know you build a lot of acrylic stuff. Okay, Chris C. I have a 300-gallon tank with a good amount, mostly SPS. I add 750 mil of elk, of calc a day in a calxer and 175 mil of elk. Does that seem right to keep it at 8.2 to 8.5? Yeah, that sounds probably about right, depending on your core load. But again, this if it's keeping your elk stable, that's what matters. Welcome to the live stream, Kitty. What's your cat's name?
This one's Penny.
Penny? Nice.
She is the reason why I can't have nice things. She'll destroy everything.
Her eyes look menacing. It's like, bring it on. Yep. Cat looks like carbon.
That's Windsor. So Jake Adams's widow. They have a cat, a black cat named Carbon.
Oh yeah, nice. Lots of reef tank references. Need a video of that. All right, they want a video of the buffing. You'll probably never see the light of day, but
Awful.
awful.
And so I'm at that stage where like so when you're doing this work, until you do the last step, the glass is cloudy. So it's like this leap of faith. It's like, did I just ruin this tank? Like, is it ever going to get actually clean, or did I just put a permanent haze into it? So I'm at that stage right now. I'm like, man, did all this effort and it's not even going to be clear? I can't even look into it.
The very
Whoops.
last step will be satisfying, though. Just got to think of that, the end game.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
We'll see.
okay. All right. Otto, I just want to tell Than thank you very much. He answered my questions about favia troubles and mentioned metal in the tank. I checked my frag rack and it was rusting into the tank.
That'll
Good
do
advice.
it.
Yep, good advice, Than.
And it's not just like, oh, it's just not just metal. It's like magnet metal is like the worst. It's so toxic.
So, on the old school magnets, not the neodymium, the whatever the standard black magnets were. I see like a lot of the old power heads had those just like bare on the mounts in the tank.
Yeah, I don't know what's that's all about. They seem fine.
Like, is that a not so nasty, aggressive, doesn't break down
I don't
metal?
know.
I
I
don't know.
remember like Tunsies were like that,
Yeah,
like unsealed, just fine.
yeah, like the
But
old
the neodymium was like
Voyager
crazy.
pumps and stuff. Yeah, I always
Yeah,
wondered about that.
hopefully somebody in chat knows better than me, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I was kind of like raising an eyebrow to like, how's that possible? Like, what metal is that exactly? That's not rusting and that's not titanium.
Hmm. Right?
I yeah, I don't know what the heck that even is.
Because it wasn't. Yeah, I've never heard of those ones being an issue. So I wonder.
Right.
I think there's less alloys in it, so maybe it's just more pure. I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know. I have to Google this now. Curiosity is high. Um. All right. I think I caught up on all the random questions as I skimmed through it. If there's
Nice.
any I missed, let me know. Yeah. So off outside of reefing, Than and I just talk audio video gear all the time.
Yeah, because it turns out so not that anybody really cares, but subconsciously you do. Audio is way more challenging than video.
Yeah, I would
And
agree.
actually this particular thing, this particular interface, I think sounds pretty good. Like I was really so for my production,
Hmm.
I was very much against doing like the phone call thing.
Yeah.
Because I mean everybody else's podcast, you know, you work with what you got, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, nah, I'm gonna make a studio, and if anybody wants to do a podcast with me, they have to like be in person in Ohio, like
High
literally in
standards.
front of me, in order to for me to hit record. Yeah. So like you know, I'll be a guest on other people's streams that are like you know digital like this, but for
Hmm.
mine, I have to be like there in person sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mainly because like audio is a
Hmm.
huge challenge. Like you don't know what the other person's setup is. They might have no idea what they're doing audio visual wise. So like the quality of that phone call can be really inconsistent.
Or if they have crappy internet and it's choppy, that's always a risk.
Yeah, it's true.
Hmm.
That's true. So the only risk for me is like, did I goof it up? Like, did I not set up the mic? Did I not hit record? You know, all that
That's fair.
stuff. But at the same time, it's still way more control over
That's
that
fair.
than most things.
Yeah.
And
So I
guys, audio is really hard.
yeah,
Like compared to video, video's easy.
that's fair. Um yeah, and yet we spend more money on video and lenses and cameras. But
Well, I don't know. Like technically, I might have spent a whole lot on making my
well,
entire room quiet.
yep.
That was a lot.
So Than also sucked me down the rabbit hole of increasing the acoustics, which I'm not there yet, but it's coming.
Oh, you're gonna
So
be so happy. Like I
I
kind
can't
of I
wait.
kind of gas him up like all the time about this because he's buying it from the same company in Ohio that did my did my building, and that stuff is so good. It's so good. It's like, dude, when you get this stuff, you get it up on your walls, you're gonna be so happy.
I'm excited. Do you know? Totally off topic right now, but I was laughing too because the door in my office is like a cheaper hollow door. I'm like, should I put in a solid door first before I cover it in acoustic material? But
Yes,
probably,
absolutely.
probably. So that might happen. Yep, endless rabbit holes.
Okay, so random thought. Can
Hmm.
you like poke a small hole in it and fill it with like expanding foam?
I feel like you would risk breaking the door, but yes, you could.
Okay.
You could drill a bunch of holes and put it in, but that stuff expands. I
Yeah,
know.
and then it just might break, like pop it open.
Well, why I'm thinking that is because around the we had some windows done in the house, and some of the windows didn't slide nicely. It's because they put too much foam in it, and it squished the jam a bit, so that it cuts them out to make the windows slide nicely again.
Ah.
So it's a risk.
Well, if you're replacing the door anyway,
It's worth the experiment.
it's like $30 in spray foam. Just shoot that stuff in there and see what happens.
It might happen. Yep,
Yeah,
it
it
might
probably will
happen.
happen.
You never know. Okay, Rev V2. Than was looking through the Alphubs website. I don't know what that is. ALUF Alufabs website.
Alufab. It's the
Alufabs.
aluminum stand
Oh,
company.
okay. Website for a new build 8x4 by 2.5 Peninsula tank. They don't have a kit. Are they worth calling and ordering or just Amazon 8020 T slot?
No, give them a call. Like they do custom work all the time. Like so, okay, especially for larger aquariums. You are really playing with fire if those measurements are off by a little bit. And you're the type of fire I'm talking about is like like structural integrity of these tanks not sitting perfectly on your stand. Um, and that could be off by just like a saw blade, and that's enough to like cause like major problems. So I would strongly encourage you to make that call and get a custom design thing done. That's really their wheelhouse. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's um, kit type stuff. I think that's like just tried and true designs. It's a starting point for popular sizes.
Yep.
That's my guess. Uh, I've never bought anything just straight off the shelf from any of these aluminum companies. Like
Mm-hmm.
customization is what they do. So
Yeah.
I would definitely encourage you to talk to them.
Even for like my like floating light bar, my original one, even I bug like whatever company I was talking to, I'm like, okay, is this going to sag? How much deflection is there going to be? I'm like, these radions is going to be, 5 pounds every foot or so, and just to calculate that all, and just figure out what size I needed just to overkill it so it wasn't sagging. So yeah, it is
Yeah.
probably worth it just for that peace of mind and make sure it's done right.
And I like to overbuild stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The cost difference to overbuild going from like one profile to the next profile in thickness, if it's a short enough length, it might not be that big of a deal. And you will like quadruple the weight rating or something. So, again, having that conversation with them to know, like, okay, so I'm worried about this thing. Well, you could just like beef that thing up and then you will stop worrying about it,
Mm-hmm.
especially once it actually shows up and you build something. It's like,
Yep.
oh, damn. Okay, never mind. This is so overbuilt. I'll never, ever, ever have a sleepless night about this.
Yeah. Peace of mind's worth it.
It's like I could have an earthquake here. I don't care. Like it's so overbuilt.
Yep. It's a nice place to be. Fish Ventura. I have 2 tanks, each with a red bubble tip. First week of August, both split at the same time over a 3-day period. First week of August. It could be some moon cycle related thing. You never know. Could be feeding. I don't know. I find even like sometimes you do water change and the difference in water temperature. There's all kinds of random stuff that can like trigger things in a tank.
Yeah,
But I'm
especially with bubble tips. They can be very finicky about
Yep.
a number of things.
Reef theory. Dan, where'd you get the wall of sound diffusers in the farm? Audi mute.
Hmm.
Is it?
That's AUDIMUTE. Um, I can safely say because I've used like several companies at this point. It is leagues ahead of other professional grade sound absorption. Like it is
Mm-hmm.
leagues better. And I'm talking about like because the other stuff I have isn't cheap. Like the other stuff I have is like it's like industry standard type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you would see that in major studios. This Automute stuff, which is also in major studios, is really, really damn nice. Uh, just so you guys don't get sticker shock, it can be upwards of $20 per square foot. So you can just do some mental math on that. And that's just for the material. You're gonna have to install it. That's gonna take you a little while. Just saying.
Yeah. It's not the cheapest in the world, but
It might be the most
I hear good
expensive in the
things. Nah, there's more. I've looked at other stuff that's also way up there, but
world. Really? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I've been hunting for a while. It's definitely more expensive than like slapping up the wood slats on the wall, but those break up reflections where this actually absorbs the noise. So
It
it's
does
kind
it
of a
does
different method.
absorption and reflection. It
Mm-hmm.
does both. Yeah. Because a lot of it's like awkwardly shaped and stuff.
Yeah,
So
I'm excited for mine eventually.
it's good.
Hopefully, I asked. I don't know. I don't know if he's at the end of this week or the next week, but he'll hopefully ship.
So
Uh,
what I think I like so much about it, it's just like it is just the greatest demonstration of how that physics works. You put this up on the wall, and it's like incontrovertible effectiveness. Like
mm-hmm.
the world sounds completely different when this stuff is on your walls.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out.
You're
Is it
sound junkies. Can you tell? Can you
no,
tell, chat?
never? Is it normal for a Kenya tree to reproduce every 3 to 4 days? That sounds like a lot, but they
Sounds like a
definitely
lot.
can.
Yeah, so that's one of those leathers that just kind of like pops off babies and sends them.
Yep. It's love is in the air in your tank there, John. John, any big news in the reefing hobby, numbers, method, tech, news, corals? I don't know if there's anything new and exciting. You're probably more in the loop than I am lately.
Mm, there's some kind of cool stuff going on because I think that a lot of the places, especially in like Australia, are messing with some like sperm and egg breeding of corals. We actually had one or a group from Monsoon Aquatics come over
Mm-hmm.
and they came and visited our facility. We chatted for a little bit. It was a fairly short trip. They were seeing a number of stores, but they were pretty excited about some of the extensive breeding that they're doing. And there's another company called Interfish that they've done some interesting breeding, and so they're getting like chimeras and stuff like that that are like
Yes.
novel.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that kind of stuff is like really cool and up and coming. I would struggle mightily to do that kind of work here
Mm-hmm.
without like a dedicated facility with a dedicated staff just doing that. Um, but I think that in the next like 10 years, that could really be something.
It's going to be pretty cool, I think, long term.
Yeah.
Some new, hopefully
It's
cool, hybridy, weird stuff coming out. Who knows?
it's
Potentially.
just so expensive to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. John. That at 70-year-olds, I can't hear my take anyways. That's the cheaper approach, but
There's something to that.
I know, right?
I've got some very, very, very nice German pumps from Deltec
Mm-hmm.
that I can hear like this little high pitched hum,
Oof.
and some older people can't hear it, but the younger people do. Like my age and younger can hear it,
Yep.
and like barely my age and older kind of can't.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of fun because I love like the performance of those pumps, but the reason why I don't use more of them is because I can just hear this little electrical buzz.
Hey, that's the reason I switched off Jable initially, because like they're quiet, but I could hear it. And I could be
Hmm.
like down the hall and this faint little sound. Most people wouldn't
Yeah,
notice it, but I would like fixate on it. It would just bother me. That's
I know
what,
exactly what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
Matt's Reef. Is it mass loaded vinyl? No, it's like a recycled paper product that's like water jet cut. It's like a super dense. I don't know if it's like made from kind of paper pulp or what it's made from. You're probably better on that one than me, but
It's hard to describe. It's not foam.
hmm,
It's not like what it is like this. Yeah, it's like this weird paper amalgam, and then
yeah,
that's then painted over top of that. So it still has like a sponginess to it, but at the same time, it's also a little bit reflective. So it does both acoustic reflection and absorption.
yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
So
Yeah. Someone somewhere, I can't figure out where the question was, but it was asking about how to seed or establish, or oh, here we go. What can I seed my tank with for a good start, bare bottom tank? Any rock or media from an established system into that tank will definitely help jumpstart it.
that will help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this isn't just me being a coral seller, but putting in lots of coral like on day one is
Mm-hmm.
good. Like that accomplishes a lot.
Yeah. I was bugging my one buddy Adam to throw a bunch of like Cyprax in his sump for me for like a month out of his like big frag system that I can steal it and inherit some goodness. So hopefully that tracks and works out. We're gonna find out.
So I had a system that we were trying to like just seed it with all kinds of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but starting with like clean dead rock,
Yep.
bare bottom. We let that thing go for a year, and it looked
Mm-hmm.
awful and had all kinds of like algae issues and everything like that. It only got better when we just said screw it, put every excess piece of overgrown coral we had in there, and
Yep.
all those problems went away.
Yep.
And this is like we had wasted 12 months of just waiting around.
That's fair. All right, fine. I'll rip a bunch of coral. Yeah, I know that's fair. But yeah, more diversity, more bacteria, and you're gonna get it from coral frags.
Oh yeah,
So, yep.
you get the best stuff from the coral frags.
Okay, burnt squirrel. Does Than ever use starboard at the bottom of his tanks? I keep seeing tanks using it for white on the bottom of their bare bottom. I've never personally used it. Have you?
you seen it a lot? I haven't seen it a lot.
Mm,
To be perfectly honest, I don't think I've ever even seen it in person, but I've heard of it ever since, like the mid 90s. People were
mm.
talking about doing that. Um, I probably wouldn't do that if it were me.
It would be a pain to keep it clean and looking nice. I think it would just get covered in algae. I mean, the plus side is reflect light back up, and it'd be better for like the base of colonies
So funny you
until
mentioned
it's
that because I
nasty.
actually made like photography racks with white acrylic bottoms where you
Hmm.
set plugs so that it would like, the light would bounce off of that and illuminate, a little bit of the underside of the corals and stuff.
Hmm.
It's a bad idea
Really?
because it makes a haze, like that light scattering. It
For
has like this,
photography purpose.
just visually,
Hmm.
like when you're just looking at it, it looks like this. Do you know what I mean when it's like a 19 like 70s era like soap opera love thing
You get
where it's
that
like
like
this
hazy, misty light.
hazy, yeah, it's like this hazy misty like glow.
Yeah.
That's what your tank starts to look like because
Hmm.
of the white bottom. It's very distracting.
Interesting. Makes sense. I
So
mean,
I don't like it.
you're having a white-ish sandbed. You're gonna get some of it, but I guess it's kind of more of a muted version. It's not going to be as intense as stark white.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so he said he wanted bare bottom,
Yeah.
but I think that like the best implementation of a white bottom that I've ever seen is an aggressively cleaned white substrate.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like Japanese garden obsessively clean because any other thing is going to grow algae to
Hmm.
such a degree that it's going to look gross.
Yeah.
But they were basically using like the substrate as a form of its own algae control. And in order to do that, that requires so much labor.
Yep.
But they did it, and it looks sugar white the entire time.
Nice. I love a nice, good, bright, clean sandbed, but it's also can be a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
not going to do it by itself.
Nope. I mean, you could get lots of creatures to turn your sand to do it. I mean, that's why sand doesn't get covered in algae normally, is because it
Yeah,
tumbles and turns, snails go through it, wrasses.
the best thing, the best fish to do that is like the orange spot diamond goby.
Mm, yes.
They're the goat, right? The only
Yep.
problem is they also just jump out of your tank.
Yeah.
They're like the arowana of like the saltwater world. Nothing you do will keep that thing in the water.
So I had one, and yeah, I found him on top of the tank one day. So I don't know if I left a crack hole. I can't remember what it was. But I came one day and he was on top of the mesh. Like I think he found some little hole, or I didn't put the little feeding cover back on or something. It was just sitting on the mesh. I was like, yeah,
They jump
but
through everything. They jump the egg crate. Everything.
yeah, but they're amazing cleaners. And out of all the sandbag cleaners, they're the ones least likely to bury everything in sand. Like they stayed relatively low in my experience, which was great.
Yeah, but their level of activity was great. They also
Mm-hmm.
had like the best personality too. Like mine would get so tame that you could
Mm-hmm.
feed it like from a turkey baster. Like it would grab like it would put its mouth over top of the turkey baster, and you could just shoot this like the whatever the frozen food into its mouth. Like it was
Yeah,
that tame,
that's
and then
cool.
it would jump out.
Yeah, figures. Yep. On that note, I got to get a lid for this tank next.
Lids are a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Sorry to all the lid making companies out there, but they're
I
a
mean,
pain.
but it depends what you keep. If you have fish that are jumper, any fish can jump, but some are
Yeah,
definitely more
that's true.
likely than others. Yeah,
Um, you have rimless.
I do.
Okay. Euro braces help a lot to keep fish in.
The edge runners.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's surprising like how effective it is,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, fish jumping out, like knock on wood, very uncommon here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mainly I think because of Euro bracing.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think they are more likely to run up at the edge than in the center, so that kind of makes sense. Plus, you have your rock and stuff in the center, so the edges are more their straight beeline if they get
Hmm.
spooked.
Yeah.
Yep. I just added a Singapore angel. Never had one of those. Got him eating seaweed, extreme pellets, and brine shrimp. Hope he leaves my LPS alone. Good luck. Good
Fuck.
luck. Yep.
Good luck with that. I don't trust him. I don't even know him. I don't trust him.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't know. I've had hit or miss with some of those. Like I've had like a Coral Beauty, never seen him touch anything. I've had Flame Angels, and they were just terrorists picking at everything. It's Russian roulette with a lot of angels in general.
I'm I had a different experience. I'm
Yeah.
like 100% Angels eight corals. Like
Well, they can.
it was perfect score.
Yeah. 100, 100 out of 100.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm batting 1,000 on coral eating angels.
Is there any that? Okay, never mind. Yeah. Is there any that you would keep in a reef tank or no? It's just not worth the risk.
It's only the ones that I heard of that are supposed to not, like the Genicathus variety,
Mm-hmm.
which are basically like green chromis looking ones. um, I think that if was to ever do the whole angel thing, I would just chalk it up to I think it's gonna eat stuff and just live
Yeah.
with it. Like I think goldflick angels are super cool. I've never owned one before.
Mm-hmm.
They look cool.
I think the key is just to have enough coral that not one colony takes too much of an impact, right? If you have a tank full of little tiny frags, might not be
Mhm.
so happy, but you have like, baseball sized colonies, the odd nip's probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah, potentially. I
That's
mean,
my
you're
theory.
talking a pretty big aquarium, though. It's
Yeah.
not just like going to be like, oh, I've got a 75. I'm just going to fill it with coral. It's like, that's not going to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. Bigger tanks, bigger the better. Bellis and Snowtails. I've only kept dwarf angels. I've never kept the big ones for the main reason of coral safety.
Yeah, the dwarf angels nip, though. I mean, um, even when you said like, oh, I never caught the coral beauty doing it. It's like they're good at not getting caught.
I mean, that could be that too. They just do it when no one's looking. The funny thing is, even like my tangs, they nip my Gargonians constantly. I have this one purple Candelbra one, and they constantly nip it. And then the polyps suck in, then a few minutes later they come out again, then comes for another nip. It's like a endless cycle.
Yeah, we've got a couple of tangs that can't be trusted.
Yep.
We've got a couple of fox faces that can't be trusted, but like
Mm-hmm.
we've got this big flamingi tang, and that
Mm-hmm.
thing is a known Duncan eater.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. It's like, why? Why? Sure, okay.
Do they actually eat Duncans?
Mine does.
Huh. Good to know.
It's like and it's not just like, oh, it's playfully nipping. Nope, it's ripping the flesh right off of that thing. It's
Huh.
in
Interesting.
real time. Yeah.
I don't have any Duncans in this tank with my Tumini, but I have a massive colony in my other tank, so good to know.
Flamingi.
Oh, Flamingo. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Flamingi. Yeah.
okay. That makes more sense.
Taminis are generally safer, but
And
like a
pretty model, normally.
I can hear the kids in the background.
Yeah,
I was
in the
like,
backyard, windows open. Um,
uh,
so okay, this is another good one. So on the opposite side of fish you wouldn't keep, what are your like must-have fish for, kind of keep your tank in check?
okay. So I am a big fan of like the algae eaters. So so far my favorite are going to be fox faces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I happen to like the Stenochatus tangs. So the Taminis, the chevrons, if you can get them,
Mm-hmm.
maybe one zebrasoma. Uh, I also like the blonde naso tangs a lot.
Yep.
So okay, so those are the herbivores. I am a huge fan of like the RAS party.
Yeah.
So six line Melanaris, Timor, the what Morella, the pygmy, or not pygmy, the possum RAS.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's four right there. All the other ones tend to jump too much for my taste.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and a leopard, but I almost don't recommend a leopard just because of how difficult they are to get in. But if your local
That's
fish
fair.
store happens to have one sticking around for like a month,
They're beautiful.
healthy, go crazy because that thing's
Yep.
going to be like rock solid for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, so you know what I started to do lately? Speaking of fish, obviously I have a wholesale account, and
Mm-hmm.
we've bought some fish wholesale. I wouldn't say that we buy a lot of fish wholesale because we're not that good of a customer. But really struggle bringing in healthy fish from like online sources and stuff. The only place that we've ever had like great 100% success rate was like Elliott from
Hmm.
Marine Collectors, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it is actually better and more cost effective for us just to like occasionally go to a local fish store, look at when, how long ago they've gotten something in. It's been a month, you've run copper. That's really good enough for me
Yeah.
because like bringing stuff in from wholesalers is a really different ball game. And even
Hmm.
if it's like triple the price to go locally, we'll go locally now because
Yeah.
it's
Just
such a bummer to lose fish in your own quarantine.
yeah. It's nice to avoid the hassle too, and just have someone pre-do it for you, so you know you're already off to the races for the most part.
Yeah, we just got 18 green chromis, and they're gorgeous, and they're
Nice.
doing great. That's one of
Excellent.
those fish that Elliot won't touch.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's a lot of. Yeah, I understand. Okay, city kid outdoors. How important is potassium in a reef tank?
Could be pretty important. It's tough to say. So it's not a trace element. It's a
Mm,
major element. Like it's like up there with like calcium in terms of its concentration. Um, Off the top of my head, I don't know. I made a video about it. It's been a while,
yep.
but it's also not super bioavailable.
Mm,
It is just simply not something that is likely to be expended. Uh, so just just get it in line,
yep.
and it will likely stick around in line for a while.
I have found that slightly elevated levels of potassium can give some very nice vibrance to your corals. But you got to be careful not to go too high with it because that could cause some risk to, fish and other stuff in your tank. Alyssa, thank you for the $5 super chat. Um, so I have experimented with dosing it for sure. And I did notice some, I don't know. It was almost, I don't know if it was a bit of a vibrance type of thing, but stuff looked happy when it was slightly elevated for me.
We have dosed it when it was low,
Mm,
but we so again, my philosophy on this stuff is just make sure that it's not zero.
yeah.
There's an entire other end of this, which people are trying to go like above natural seawater levels and seeing positive results, and that is probably out of my wheelhouse for like a number of reasons. One of which is I could accidentally kill a lot of stuff,
Yep.
or not accidentally. I would purposely kill a lot of stuff by doing something like that, right?
Yep.
The other thing is that is as a supplier of coral, I don't know if it's a good idea to be selling like juiced up corals in that way
It makes sense.
because I can't ever convince like the hobbyist, oh, you really should be running, double the strength of molybdenum, this and that, this and that, this and that, and extra potassium to get this color.
Mm, yeah. No, it's
Sorry, this
tricky.
thing is going to turn gray in your tank.
Now
Be
you
better.
want your tank to just be generic. Everything that comes out is gonna look just as good in any tank. And if it looks better from elevated stuff, then sweet. But
Great. Like even our photography is like that because um, I think that we have the ability to take more stunning photography than what we currently publish.
mm,
Like, and we do get published in like Coral Magazine and stuff. Like so, like Becca, for example, has like a direct line to Coral Magazine and stuff
yeah.
like that. They talk like all the time.
Mm,
Um, but again, when you're in the business of selling coral, there's only it's almost like you don't want to overdo it
mm,
because we're already hitting this coral with the type of lighting that most people would never even see in person. Like
yeah.
it's getting radions from above and it's getting like Kessel spotlights. It is being shot by probably a
Autofocus.
$6,000 camera and then
Yeah.
professionally edited by one of the best photographers in the industry.
Mm,
That is a recipe for disappointment when you send them a product, you know?
Yep.
It's like you're not going to replicate that. There's like a handful of places on Earth that can replicate this sort of production. So sometimes we actually have to tone it down.
You're like, it
Yeah,
looks too good. Drop that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like seeing like a supermodel in person. It's like, she's pretty,
Yep.
but it's not like what I saw in the magazine sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah, that's the other interesting thing too with like some of the corals at least. They're when they're like macro up close, looks freaking phenomenal, but to the eye you don't actually see that amazingly detail unless you have one
Yeah,
of those big magnifiers inside the glass. But
yeah, there's a huge deal to that. We've got like this one Acropora, for example,
mhm,
and in the center of every polyp, so it's a mostly red acro, like
mhm.
mostly red and blue acro. At the center of every single polyp is a yellow star.
Oh,
Like,
cool.
how cool is that? You'll never
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
Never see it. It's so small. You're talking about like a small portion of a small polyp coral.
Hmm.
And I'm 48. I'm like losing my like up close vision. So like I'll never
Yeah.
appreciate coral for what it is anymore.
It's funny because even some like the one coral in my tank that stands out is vivid confetti. Like it's nice from far away, but it looks freaking phenomenal in the macro shot with all the different colors and polyps and stuff. And whenever I look at a photo, I'm like, damn, that looks good. When you look at your tank, it's not one that I instantly jump to, right? But the macro, I'm just like, damn.
Yeah, and we even have like the ultra macro too, where we can like
Mm,
see like the tiniest of details. And it's like
I
no
know.
one no one looks at their tank like this.
I mean, just put your camera there, a live feed to a TV above it, and you're like, yep, yep, yep. Let's appreciate it. Let's pick a new coral each day to feature.
But imagine like taking that one step further and then also juicing up the corals with
Yeah,
chemicals.
yeah.
And
Pretty much,
again,
eh?
it's like you're like now doubling down on potential
Hmm.
disappointment. It's like I don't
Yep.
want to have that conversation. I just want to sell coral.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and the other thing is too, like, half time, people get their orange and yellow filters to like cancel out the blues and bring it back to whiter. And it's always tricky to see, what's the actual thing and reproducing what your eye sees. Like, you do a cool job with your spectrum change. I like how you do that on the live shows, but
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to because you're also not going to be matching other people's lights. Like I was
mhm,
actually under the impression that most people's lights are more or less the same at this point, and that's not true.
mhm,
Like uh, I went to somebody's tank that had like a high-end acro collection, and for whatever reason, his blue lights legit made everything blue.
yep,
Well, like the only way you could see color is if you put on the glasses.
yep,
And in my tanks under radiance, okay, knock radiance for all you want for its like Mobius goofiness and everything, high price point, whatever. Okay,
mhm,
when you shine Ecotech Radion blues onto your SPS, they glow different colors. And I thought that was kind of assumed for every fixture. It is definitely not. I've just been
yep,
spoiled by what turns out to be pretty good lights.
mhm. That's fair. That's fair. Do you like the blues or the pros?
Pros all day.
Good man, good man. Okay.
No, no. One of the guys here is like addicted to blue.
Yeah.
He's like the only one. Everybody else
Mm.
is like, come on, it's not even close. Pros are way better.
All right. Yeah, I'm pro camp too, and I appreciate the blues and the whites. So my schedule goes through everything throughout the day.
We have to use the pros because in order for to shoot photos better,
Hmm.
the all blue stuff it just wreaks havoc on the quality of imagery.
It really does. It's funny actually. The tank video that I posted the other day, it was so blue, and I tried to warm it up as much as I could on this tank, but then I laughed, so I literally made me order like another like mild orange filter to cut down the blue for just for next time I film super blue tanks. But you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes.
Yeah, you gotta do what you can work with. But
If
I actually hate orange filters.
So, if anyone is using a normal camera for photos, I've tried many filters of yellows and oranges, and the best one I found so far is the 85B to
Yep.
cut the blues without being too much changing it. I tried the 85 and it was like barely anything, was useless. So I returned it and I got the 85B finally.
Yep.
But
The
yep,
85B is the gold standard.
yep, that's the only one that's reasonably accurate for colors. Anything else is too weird looking for yellows or oranges.
So we have 85B filters in every thread size. Every single one.
You're funny. I just bought an 82 and I have step down rings, so I want to use on the other lens.
No, we literally have one like for every single. So we've got like this like filing cabinet of just like
You're
all the
funny.
different yellow sizes. We even
Yep.
have the goofy colors, the other ones like the reds and stuff. That they're all not good for this
Yep.
application. But the 85B
That's the
is where
magic.
you yeah.
That's the magic.
So
Yep.
you know what I just got the other day
What?
is are you an iPhone guy?
I do.
Okay. So Polyp Lab made a new lens. I
Ah.
don't know if I like it or not. Love me some Polyp Lab. They support my
Okay.
channel. Love Phil. I don't know if I like this product. It's not a clip-on.
Oh,
It's magnetic.
interesting.
It's square.
Hmm.
So it like snaps on. So you actually have to like put these little magnet things and stick them to your phone,
Yeah,
and then this thing snaps onto those magnets. So right off the bat, I don't know if like a lot of people want to like stick stuff to their phone.
that's fair.
And then I also use a case, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's a very weak connection, so you can like shake your phone and it
Yep.
can kind of come off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was just shooting with it the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
boy, does it work nicely.
Huh. I'll have to find one of these. At the end of
Yeah,
the day, it all comes down to what is like the color of like the orange or the yellow. Like some of them work fantastic and some just make the colors look too fake or too out to lunch or
I was I was pleasantly surprised by the performance of this because I had to take a picture of a tank for actually like a tank manufacturer. They wanted to see what I already had,
mm-hmm.
and I just slapped that thing on, took a couple photos, and then I was like looking at it, like, boy, that's like pretty good for a phone video for a phone camera. Because usually, like, I never shoot with a phone, but just for
Yep.
convenience. And it's like,
Solid.
okay, okay.
All right. I have to find one now. I'm curious. No, good to know. One day we're just gonna have to do like a tech side geeking out stream.
We do it every time.
Yeah, we do. It
It's always
sneaks
time.
in. It sneaks in. I know. All right. I think I don't know. 6 more minutes and we'll wrap it up because we're at almost at an hour and a half. And then I will not take you all night. But as easy as I could, just keep on going. Okay, sorry, I've totally ignored the chat the last 10 minutes. Reef Theory 85B arrives today. Good choice, sir. Good choice. My Midas Plenty. Sounds like that was on the high fish list. Midas Plenties are cool. They have awesome personalities. Da-da-da. They're so bubbly and happy.
I don't think I've ever even had one. A minus
No?
bunny.
Yeah, they're
No, I
just like
think
this bright yellow, this
white
like a
yellow.
little long, and they're always just like bubbly and like, what's going on? I don't know. I like them. Reef Exotico by Lewis just ordered a Sony 90mm macro lens. Good choice. Good choice. That's my,
Nice.
yeah, that's up there. That's one of my favorites for the macro side. Thought I had it on my desk. Maybe I don't. But yeah,
Luis,
there.
by the way, has a really cool Mexican restaurant in Colorado, and he made all kinds of like insanely delicious food for
Nice.
me the last time that I was there for Reefstock. Like insanely good.
Oh, that does sound good. One day I'll have to make it out. No, that's awesome.
He made like a Mexican pulled pork ramen.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it was wild.
I like it. That does sound delicious. Dan, are you coming to Aquashell in November?
No, I'm not. I'll be missing that.
Yeah.
I only have one trip left on the calendar, and that is going to the UK at the end of October.
Solid. That'll be fun. What are you going for? Just for fun or?
So I was invited by Paul from
Yeah.
AAC,
Mm-hmm.
and he's holding like what might be like a small event there. And he wanted me there for like a little speaking engagement. And normally I would say no to most speaking engagements, but he made me like a deal I couldn't refuse. And so I'm
Nice.
like, okay, I'll go to the UK for a week.
Sounds like fun.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. That's awesome. John Ray, thanks for the stream. 1:25 a.m. here. John, I appreciate your UK dedication, buddy.
There you go.
Aussie
I'll,
Dan, use my TG6 for underwater photography. Yeah, the Olympus TGs are phenomenal for underwater macros for the price. Do you have one of those?
I don't. No.
Dan. Oh,
We use
I.
uh we use a what is little telescope type ports that go into the water.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, those tubes.
Yeah.
I don't know where mine is, but they're the Olympus TG cameras. I bought this used one for like $200, the TG4. They're
Uh-huh.
underwater. You can take them diving, but they have phenomenal macro capabilities and they have great color correction. So you can just dunk it in and take a phenomenal photo right beside a coral. No reflections, nothing to
Nice.
deal with. I'll show you
Nice.
later. I feel like you should have one in your arsenal. When you don't want to set up a coral in the photo box, you just be like, dink. And once you have your white set presets, golden.
Nice.
Yep. Um, yeah. So what's the show that you're going to be speaking at? Sorry.
I don't know the name of the show. Okay. Okay. Don't hold me to this. It might be called Coral Freaks.
Nice. Makes sense. Sounds legit.
Sounds legit.
Yep.
So it's a show that Paul had put on like the first time I met him, like way back in like 2019. So if you guys
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, Paul, he was a guest on one of my more recent podcasts. He owns a very highly respected
Oh,
shop.
UK Paul. Okay, I've met him. I know who
UK
you're talking
Paul.
about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Paul Hughes. And he has a very, very nice store in the UK. And
Mm-hmm.
he held an event at the same like facility because it's like it's a group of a bunch of different like shops, but
Yeah.
there's like a central like conference hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had like a little small trade show thing there. Uh, very cool. Very cool. I'm very much looking forward to that. So he and obviously, you know, they're such gracious hosts,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Is there anything that you want to like do and see here?" I'm like, "Listen, I want to talk to Jamie Craggs about breeding urchins.
Yeah.
I want to you know see Horniman Museum where Jamie works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to convince Alex from Abiz to come up from Germany to come and hang out,
Nice.
and I don't want to see my friend Laura Carlin who has a coral farm there as well. The rest of the time, I want everything to be scheduled around food. So like
Yep.
I don't need to see any sights. I don't need to see any historical nothing.
All the
I want
delicious.
I want like a table at restaurant Gordon Ramsay and just like we'll just go down the list of like you know fancy dining joints from there.
Yeah.
And some hole in the wall places. I'm such a fat kid at heart these days.
You know, you gotta enjoy the delicious things in life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are who to hang out with too. They're freaking hilarious. I like they're always poking each other kind of British sense of humor. They're very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Spencer, is coral spawning slash breeding in the future of tidal gardens? Would you
I
go
would
down that rabbit
love
hole?
for it to be. I would love for it to be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that that activity is absolutely within like the ethos of the company.
Yeah.
Um, but the obstacle is it would require a different building altogether.
Mm-hmm.
It would require different staff altogether, and it needs to be funded at a level that I can't do personally.
Yeah. Fair.
It's very very expensive. Um, but it is super interesting stuff. I think that so I'll get a little bit more in the weeds for this, okay?
Yeah.
So you can breed acros.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would probably be like the easiest step into it, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think breeding acros is like a good business decision because why don't you let somebody else breed it
Mm-hmm.
and then you take a frag of it and then you just now have it and you can just frag it, you know, from that point forward, right?
Fair.
It's so kind of like perhaps a bad business decision there. But I think that I'm sorry, breeding like Cynarinas, Acanthophilia, Scolies, like that type of thing could be very nice. The only problem is I think that currently the only way that it's being done is you're bringing in corals from the wild that already have eggs.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if gametogenesis part of that puzzle has been figured out. Like, I
Mm,
don't think, well, okay, maybe I'm talking out of my neck because I've definitely had torches spawn in my tanks.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we at the time we had no way of collecting, gametes or anything like that. We didn't know what we were
Hmm.
doing. But yeah, one day I did like go out to the greenhouse at night, and sure enough, like there were these LPS spawning. But to actually turn that into production, that might be a more challenging step than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
But, and the other thing is like to get something to be a growable size or a sellable size, you're talking like potentially years.
Hmm.
A lot can happen in years.
Start
So
with breeding your tiny urchins first to keep them clean.
yeah, well, so, yeah, urchins might be my jam.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was on some of Jamie's things. That was the key to survival of those little tiny polyps, right? Is not being
Mhm.
covered by algae and dying. Was miniature urchins to clean it without trampling over the polyps.
Yeah,
Baby
and it
steps.
turns out, yeah, I have more of an immediate need for baby urchins than I do baby corals.
Yep,
I would love just to grow an army of little baby urchins when they get bigger than to sell them to other people that have algae issues. Do you
that's
know
true.
anybody that might have an algae issue? I might.
They're they're one of the best cleaners. Like urchins are awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yep. Okay. All right. Last question from the chat. Do. What would be a recommended nitrate and phosphate level for a Zoa only frag tank? Honestly, I think they're pretty flexible. But what would you say?
Same.
Yeah.
Not zero.
Yeah. Not zero. That's pretty much anything above that. You're pretty, pretty good. Even
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen like an issue of elevated nutrients. Like I've never had extreme enough, but they're
no.
pretty
If it's
hardy.
Zoa only, especially, you could probably get away with like 50
Mm,
nitrate, 50 parts per million nitrate, and like 1 part per million phosphate.
yeah.
Like, I think that your issues will come from your levels being too low rather than too high.
Hmm. Yep. I think so too. All right, guys. I must sadly depart, and I don't want to keep Than all night, but I appreciate you joining me today.
No worries. Thanks for the invite.
Thank the roofers for ending early, showing up early. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So if you guys are in the States and are able to pick up some amazing stuff, check out Dan's live stream, Tidal Gardens.
Yes.
Shelly, Fish Ventura, Alyssa, thank you guys for the super chat. And yeah, thanks for hanging out tonight. As always, enjoyed it. Hit the like button. New subscribe. Want to buy some coral? Check out Tidal Gardens, and we'll see you guys in
I
the
saw
next live
coral,
stream.
guys.
Yeah, you do. Beautiful corals. Hey, and if you're not in the US, still watch all Than streams because I've learned so many coral names just from watching your streams. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that one's called. So it's good. Very educational. All right, guys, have a good night.
Night.